The first transmission had arrived 3 months ago, crackling through the void with the desperation of a dying species. Commander Vex Meridian stood before the holographic display in the command center of Luna Station, watching the alien message replay for the 100th time. The Kitharian delegation had been beautiful tall, ethereal beings with opalescent skin and voices like wind chimes. Their ship limping toward Earth's solar system with hull breaches and failing life support systems. We seek sanctuary. Their leader, Velter Anoxi, had pleaded through the translation matrix. Our world burns. The Devourer swarm has consumed our homeworld, our colonies, our fleets. We are all that remains to million souls seeking only a place to survive. President Kai Torrens had made the decision that would haunt humanity forever. Despite the protests from the military council and the warnings from xenobiologist Dr. Nala Vesper, Earth had opened its arms. The Pacific Refuge, a massive floating city constructed in international waters, became their new home. Humanity had poured resources into making it habitable, retrofitting the structures with Kitharian atmospheric processors, gravity generators, and biocompatible living spaces. We are forever in your debt, Velter had said during the welcoming ceremony, his crystalline eyes reflecting the Earth's blue oceans. The Kitharians will never forget this kindness. But Commander Meridian had noticed things, small things. The way Kitharian ships continued arriving even after their population was supposedly settled. The energy readings from the Pacific Refuge that didn't match their stated technology levels. The restricted zones within their sanctuary that human technicians were barred from entering. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Jara Kessler approached, her face pale. The overnight reconnaissance reports are in. The Kitharians aren't just mining the ocean floor for minerals anymore. Meridian turned from the viewport showing Earth's scarred surface. What had once been verdant continents now showed brown patches, dying ecosystems, withered forests, acidified lakes. The Kitharians' atmospheric processors, they claimed, were having unexpected interactions with Earth's biosphere. Show me, Meridian commanded. The holographic display shifted to underwater drone footage, miles beneath the Pacific Refuge. Massive Kitharian machines crawled across the seafloor like mechanical leviathans. But they weren't mining, they were installing something geometric. Structures that pulsed with the same energy signature as their ship's FTL drives. Jesus Christ, whispered Dr. Vesper, joining them at the display. Those aren't mining operations. They're anchors. Anchors for what? Kessler asked, before anyone could answer. The lights in Luna Station flickered. Emergency klaxons began wailing as the station's defensive systems activated automatically. Through the observation windows, they could see them hundreds of ships dropping out of FTL space around Earth. Not fleeing refugee vessels, but sleek warships bearing Kitharian energy signatures. Sir, Communications Officer Finn Valdez's voice cracked. We're receiving a transmission from the Pacific Refuge. It's Velter. The hologram materialized, but this wasn't the desperate refugee they'd welcomed. Velter's opalescent skin now gleamed with cybernetic enhancements, his crystalline eyes replaced with mechanical optics that glowed with predatory intelligence. Humans of Earth. His voice no longer held the musical quality of wind chimes, but the cold efficiency of a conqueror. Your species has served its purpose. You have given us exactly what we needed. A staging ground, resources, and most importantly, time to prepare. The Devourer swarm that destroyed our homeworld. We are the Devourer swarm. We simply evolved beyond the need for a single planet. The display shifted to show Earth's major cities. Kitharian ships hovered over New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, every major population center simultaneously. The terraforming processes we've initiated will complete the transformation of your world. Within 72 hours, Velter continued, your atmosphere will become breathable for our species. Your oceans will be seeded with our organisms, and your land masses will be prepared for our colonies. Humanity will be relocated to designated preservation zones, where you will serve as a labor force for our expanding empire. The transmission cut to static. Commander Meridian stared at the tactical display showing Earth surrounded by Kitharian warships, their own home planet held hostage by the very species they'd saved. Around him, the command staff stood in stunned silence. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Kessler finally spoke, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Orders. Meridian reached for the communications console, his jaw set in grim determination. It was time to send a message to every human military installation, every colony ship, every outpost scattered across the solar system. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They'd assumed humanity would roll over and die. Quietly, they were about to learn otherwise. The first shots were fired 6 hours after Velter's ultimatum. When the Kitharian fleet moved to disable Earth's orbital defense platforms, Commander Meridian watched from Luna Station. As humanity's automated defenses came online, their targeting systems locked onto the nearest alien vessels. The platforms had been designed to defend against asteroids and space debris. Not a full-scale invasion, but they were all Earth had. Luna Station to all platforms. Meridian broadcast. Weapons free. Repeat. Weapons free. The vacuum of space erupted in brilliant flashes as railgun projectiles and particle beams lanced toward the Kitharian ships. The first salvo caught the aliens by surprise. They'd expected humanity to surrender without a fight. 3 of their escort vessels took direct hits, their shields flaring before failing entirely. The sleek ships cracked open like eggs, venting atmosphere and debris. But the victory was short-lived. "Sir, incoming," Kessler shouted as the Kitharian fleet returned fire. The alien weapons were unlike anything in human arsenals. Streams of coherent energy that seemed to bend reality itself, turning the orbital platform's own armor into plasma. Defense Platform 7 simply ceased. One moment it was firing at the enemy. The next it was expanding gases and twisted metal on Earth's surface. The real horror was beginning. Captain Rex Hawthorne led the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Unit as they stormed the beaches of Midway Island, where a Kitharian processing facility had been detected. The intel suggested they were using human captives to test their atmospheric conversion technology. "Move, move, move," Hawthorne bellowed as his troops deployed from the landing craft. The beach was wrong. The sand had taken on a crystalline quality, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with alien toxins. The Kitharians had been expecting them. Energy beams erupted from concealed positions as the aliens revealed their true nature. Gone were the graceful, ethereal beings who had pleaded for sanctuary. These creatures were biomechanical nightmares, their bodies augmented with living metal and pulsing cybernetics. They moved within human speed, their limbs extending into razor-sharp appendages that could slice through marine armor like paper. "Contact front," Sergeant Maya Thorne screamed as she opened fire with her pulse rifle. The bullets found their mark, but the Kitharian warrior didn't fall. Instead, its wounds sealed themselves with liquid metal, and it kept coming. The battle devolved into close-quarters combat as the aliens closed the distance. Private Danny Voss found himself face-to-face with a Kitharian whose jaw had split open. To reveal rows of grinding mechanical teeth, he jammed his rifle barrel into the creature's mouth and pulled the trigger, painting the crystalline sand with sparking alien blood. "They're not just using our resources," Dr. Vesper's voice crackled through Hawthorne's calm from the orbiting research vessel. "They're using our people. The atmospheric processors aren't just changing our air, they're incorporating human genetic material into the process." The revelation hit the Marines like a physical blow. In the processing facility, they found the true thousands of human captives connected to biomechanical harnesses, their life force being drained to power the terraforming machines. Men, women, children from the refugee camps that had formed around the Pacific Refuge, all slowly being consumed to transform their own world against them. "Sir," Corporal Lisa Hendricks whispered, her face pale behind her helmet visor. "Some of these people, they're still alive, but they're changing." The captured humans were undergoing some kind of metamorphosis, their bodies becoming translucent, their nervous systems visible through their skin, as they were slowly converted into living components for the alien machinery. Hawthorne made the hardest decision of his military career. Plant the charges, all of them. "Sir, the prisoners are already dead." Hawthorne cut her off. "We're just ending their suffering." The nuclear charges detonated simultaneously, vaporizing the facility and everyone inside. Through the mushroom cloud, Hawthorne could see more processing facilities dotting the horizon, dozens of them, each one consuming more human lives to fuel the Kitharian transformation of Earth. Back on Luna Station, Meridian received the after-action reports with growing horror. Humanity's first engagement with the true Kitharian forces had revealed the scope of their betrayal. The aliens hadn't just taken Earth's resources, they were literally consuming humanity itself to power their terraforming process. "Status report from the Mars colonies?" Meridian asked. "Communication blackout as of 2 hours ago." Kessler replied, "Same with the asteroid mining operations and the Jupiter research stations. The Kitharians had been planning this for months. using their time and sanctuary to map every human installation, every weakness, every strategic resource. They turned humanity's greatest strength, their compassion, and willingness to help into their greatest vulnerability, sir. Communications Officer Valdez announced. Incoming transmission from Admiral Soren Blackfist aboard the UES Retribution. The Third Fleet is requesting permission to implement Protocol 7. Meridian's blood ran cold. Protocol 7 was humanity's last resort, the complete militarization of the solar system, including the activation of weapon systems that had been deemed dangerous for peacetime use. If they implemented it, there would be no going back. Earth would become a battlefield, with humanity's survival hanging in the balance. Tell the Admiral. Meridian paused, looking at Earth through the observation window. His home planet was already changing, the familiar blue and green giving way to alien colors as the terraforming process accelerated. Tell him Protocol 7 is authorized. It's time to show these bastards what happens when you mistake human kindness for weakness. Admiral Soren Blackfist stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as humanity's Third Fleet emerged from the asteroid belt, their ships bristling with weapons that had never been tested in combat. Protocol 7 had unleashed technologies that the Geneva Conventions of 2387 had banned from use, weapons designed not just to kill, but to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Admiral, Captain Zara Nightfall reported from the UES Vengeance. Catharian fleet is moving to intercept. 300 ships and counting. Let them come. Blackfist growled, his cybernetic eye analyzing the tactical display. Weapons Officer Crix. Activate the Hellfire Protocol. The space between the fleets erupted in a symphony of destruction as humanity's banned weapons came online. Quantum torpedoes that didn't just destroy their targets, but erased them from reality itself. Viral nanites that converted enemy hull material into expanding clouds of corrosive plasma. Gravity bombs that crushed Catharian ships into singularities. But the aliens adapted quickly. Their ships began reconfiguring mid-battle, their biomechanical hulls flowing like liquid to absorb and redirect humanity's attacks. What had seemed like a technological advantage evaporated as the Catharians revealed their true capabilities. Sir, Tactical Officer Morgan Steele shouted, the enemy ships are learning. They're adapting to our weapons in real time. A Catharian battleship, its entire port side destroyed by a quantum torpedo, simply grew a new hull section using the debris of its fallen comrades. The alien vessels were more than ships, they were living organisms that could evolve during combat. On Earth's surface, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Major Elena Vasquez led the desperate defense of Sao Paulo as Catharian ground forces poured from their landing craft. The aliens had abandoned any pretense of their original form. These were pure war forms, creatures of living metal and flesh that could reshape themselves for any battlefield. Fall back to the metro tunnels, Vasquez ordered as her troops retreated from the surface. The Catharians were using the city's own infrastructure against them, converting the buildings into hive-like structures that spawned more alien warriors. Sergeant First Class Dmitry Volkov found himself face-to-face with a Catharian warform that had assumed the shape of a massive spider, its legs ending in plasma cannons. He ducked behind an overturned car as the creature opened fire, the metal liquefying under the aliens' assault. Vasquez, we can't hold them, he shouted into his comm. They're converting everything, the buildings, the vehicles, even the concrete. It's all becoming part of them. The Major's response was cut short as a Catharian bioship descended from the clouds, its weapons reducing an entire city block to component atoms. The ship then landed in the devastated area and began to digest it, converting the destroyed buildings into raw material for more war forms. In the underground command bunker beneath Geneva, President Kai Torrens received reports from battlefronts across the globe. Every major city was under assault, the Catharian forces growing stronger with each victory as they consumed humanity's infrastructure and converted it to their own use. Mr. President, General Akira Stormwind announced, her face grim. We've lost contact with the Australian continent. Satellite imagery shows it's gone, sir. The entire landmass has been converted into some kind of organic processing facility. Through the bunker's reinforced windows, Torrens could see the sky itself changing color as the Catharian atmospheric processors worked their alien chemistry on Earth's air. The blue was giving way to a sickly green, and the clouds had taken on an oily, iridescent quality. What about the evacuation ships? Torrens asked desperately. The Catharians are hunting them down. General Stormwind replied, "They've established a blockade around the entire solar system. Nothing gets in or out without their permission." Dr. Nala Vesper's voice crackled through the communication system. "From her research station in Earth's upper atmosphere, Mr. President, I've been analyzing the Kitharian transformation process. It's not just terraforming, they're creating a cascade effect that will spread beyond Earth. If they complete their work here, they'll be able to trigger the same process on every planet in the system within a matter of days." The implications hit everyone in the bunker simultaneously. This wasn't just an invasion, it was the complete conversion of humanity's solar system into something alien. Mars, Europa, Titan, all of humanity's colonies would be consumed and transformed. "There has to be something we can do," Torrance said, though his voice lacked conviction. "There is." Admiral Blackfist's voice came through the calm from the embattled Third Fleet. "But you're not going to like it." The Admiral's plan was desperate, brutal. It would require sacrifices that would haunt humanity forever. The Kitharians had made one critical error. They'd assumed that humans would fight like civilized beings, following rules of war and minimizing collateral damage. They were about to learn that when pushed to extinction, humanity would abandon every principle they'd ever held sacred. "Sir." Commander Meridian's voice joined the conference from Luna Station. "I've been in contact with the deep space monitoring stations. There's something else coming. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system." "More Kitharians?" General Stormwind asked. "No, sir. These signatures match the energy profiles of the original Devourer swarm that the Kitharians claim destroyed their homeworld. If I'm reading this correctly, the real Devourer swarm is on its way to Earth." The silence in the bunker was deafening as the full scope of the Kitharian deception became clear. They hadn't been fleeing the Devourer swarm, they'd been leading it straight to humanity's doorstep, using Earth as bait for their true enemies while simultaneously claiming the planet for themselves. "How long?" President Torrance asked quietly. 18 hours, sir, maybe less." Humanity was about to face not one, but the alien threat simultaneously. The Kitharians who had betrayed their trust, and the Devourer swarm that had been following them across the galaxy. Earth was going to become ground zero for an alien war that would determine the fate of the solar system. "Gentlemen, ladies," Torrance said, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. "It's time to implement the Scorched Earth Protocol. If we're going to die, we're taking both of these bastard species with us." The Scorched Earth Protocol had been designed as humanity's ultimate deterrent, a weapon so terrible that its mere existence was meant to prevent its use. Commander Axel Grimm stood in the heart of the Cheyenne Mountain complex, his hands poised over the activation controls for Project Ragnarok. Around him, the surviving members of humanity's military leadership watched in grim silence. "Sir, Chief Science Officer Dr. Lyra Ironheart reported from her station. The gravitational resonance bombs are in position. All 7 are synchronized with Earth's core frequency. The plan was simple in its brutality. If the Kitharians wanted Earth, they could have it as a molten ball of radioactive slag. The gravitational bombs would destabilize the planet's core, creating a chain reaction that would turn the entire world into a weapon capable of destroying both the Kitharian fleet and the approaching Devourer swarm. "Population status," President Torrance asked from his bunker in Geneva. "Evacuation of the deep space habitats is 73% complete." General Stormwind replied, "The generation ships are loaded with genetic samples and cultural archives. If we survive this, humanity will be able to rebuild." Elsewhere, Admiral Blackfist's voice crackled through the calm from the bridge of the UES Retribution. "Kitharian fleet is moving to stop us. They've figured out what we're planning. Through the mountain sensors, they could see the alien ships converging on Earth like angry wasps, their biomechanical hulls reconfiguring for atmospheric combat." The Kitharians were no longer content to slowly consume humanity. They were moving to finish the job immediately. "Execute Phase 1, Torrance ordered. Across Earth's surface, hidden weapons systems activated simultaneously. Nuclear mines that had been secreted in major cities detonated, denying the Kitharians their primary processing centers. The explosions turned human metropolises into radioactive craters, but they also destroyed the alien infrastructure that had been built within them. Captain Rex Hawthorne led the final assault on the Pacific Refuge, the floating city that had once been humanity's gift to the Kitharian refugees. Now it served as their primary command center, its biomechanical spires reaching toward the poisoned sky like the fingers of a dead god. "Remember, Hawthorne told his Marines as their assault boats approached the alien stronghold. No prisoners, no quarter. They forfeited any right to mercy when they betrayed our trust. The battle for the Pacific Refuge was unlike anything in human military history. The Kitharians had converted the entire structure into a living fortress, its walls lined with organic weapons that fired streams of corrosive acid. Marine units found themselves fighting through corridors that actively tried to digest them, their boots melting as they walked across floors that had become stomach lining. Sergeant Maya Thorne found herself trapped in what had once been the Refugee Medical Center, now a nightmarish laboratory where human captives were being processed into biomechanical components. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat like rhythm, and the air was thick with the screams of the dying. "Sir," she radioed to Hawthorne, "I found where they're keeping the children." The sight that greeted her was humanity's darkest nightmare realized. Thousands of human children, captured from the refugee camps, were suspended in organic pods that were slowly converting them into living processors for the Kitharian war machine. Their small bodies were being invaded by mechanical tendrils that rewrote their nervous systems to serve alien purposes. Thorne's finger tightened on the trigger of her flamethrower. The children were beyond saving. They were being turned into weapons that would be used against their own species. Her mercy came in the form of cleansing fire that ended their suffering and denied the Kitharians their most horrific resource. Meanwhile, in Earth's upper atmosphere, the first elements of the Devourer swarm began to arrive. Dr. Vesper watched in horror from her research station as the alien fleet dropped out of FTL's space-not ships, but living creatures the size of moons, their bodies crackling with bioelectric energy. "My God," she whispered into her calm, "they're not machines, they're organisms. Massive spaceborne life forms that consume entire star systems." The Devourer swarm beings immediately began feeding on the energy signatures of both the Kitharian fleet and Earth itself. Their massive forms stretched across thousands of kilometers, their feeding tentacles reaching toward the planet's surface like the arms of cosmic jellyfish. "Sir," Commander Meridian reported from Luna Station, "the Kitharians and the Devourers are engaging each other. It's like watching gods go to war." The space around Earth became a battlefield between the alien species, both of which view humanity as nothing more than collateral damage. Kitharian bioships launched themselves at the Devourer entities, their weapons carving chunks from the massive creatures' bodies, but the Devourers simply absorbed the damage, their wounds healing as they incorporated the destroyed Kitharian technology into their own cellular structure. Phase 2, President Torrens ordered. The second wave of humanity's desperate plan began as the gravitational bombs activated in sequence. The first detonation occurred beneath the Mariana Trench, its effects rippling through Earth's crust like a stone dropped at still water. The planet's tectonic plates began to shift, volcanoes erupting along every major fault line. But the true horror of humanity's final gambit was yet to come. As the gravitational bombs continued their work, they began to affect the space around Earth itself. The planet's gravity well became unstable, creating massive distortions that pulled debris from the orbital battle down toward the surface. Chunks of destroyed Kitharian ships crashed into major cities, their biomechanical components still active, still trying to consume and convert even as they burned through the atmosphere. A piece of a Devourer entity, the size of Manhattan, impacted in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, its alien biology immediately beginning to process the seawater into something else entirely. "Sir," Dr. Ironheart reported, her voice filled with barely controlled terror, "the gravitational instabilities are cascading faster than projected. If we don't evacuate the remaining population within the next 6 hours, the tidal forces will tear the planet apart." Torrens looked at the tactical display showing Earth wreathed in fire and alien debris, its surface scarred by the greatest battle in human history. The planet that had given birth to their species was dying. "Sacrifice on the altar of survival. Continue with the plan," he said quietly, "and may God forgive us for what we're about to do." The space around Earth had become a graveyard of worlds. Admiral Blackfist watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution as 3 different species fought for control of a dying planet, their battle tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself. The Kitharian biofleet numbered in the thousands, their ships morphing and adapting to each new threat. The Devourer swarm entities dwarfed them all, creatures of living void that consumed energy and matter with equal hunger, and caught between them were the remnants of humanity's military forces, fighting with the desperate fury of a species facing extinction. "Sir," Captain Nightfall reported from the UES Vengeance. Catharian dreadnought moving to intercept. It's Jesus. That thing is the size of a city. The massive Catharian vessel had been constructed from the converted remains of Sao Paulo, its biomechanical bulk bristling with weapons that had once been human buildings. Streets had become energy conduits, parks had been converted into missile batteries, and the city's population centers now served as organic processors for the ship's living components. All ships, converge on that dreadnought, Black Fist ordered. We don't let them use our own cities as weapons against us. The Third Fleet's remaining 4 to 7 ships formed a spearhead formation, their banned weapons charging for a coordinated assault. But as they approached, the Catharian dreadnought began to change. Its hull rippled like water, absorbing and redirecting their attacks. Every quantum torpedo, every particle beam, every gravity bomb that struck the massive ship was somehow incorporated into its structure, making it stronger. It's learning from our attacks. Tactical Officer Steele reported in disbelief. Each weapon we use against it becomes part of its defensive matrix. The dreadnought's counterattack was swift and brutal. Streams of weaponized plasma converted from the melted remains of human vehicles lanced out toward the human fleet. The used Defiance took a direct hit, its hull vaporizing as the crew of 3,000 souls became superheated gas. But Admiral Blackfist had one advantage the Catharians hadn't counted on. Desperation makes humans creative in ways that no other species can match. Ramming speed, he ordered. All ships, ramming speed. The human fleet abandoned all pretense of traditional space combat. Instead of trying to outfight the technologically superior aliens, they turned their ships into kinetic weapons. The UES Retribution led the charge, its hull reinforced with every piece of debris they could weld to its surface. The collision was cataclysmic. Blackfist's flagship struck the Catharian dreadnought at 17% of light speed. The impact, creating a miniature supernova that could be seen from Earth's surface. The Admiral's last words, broadcast to every human ship in the system, were, "Remember us, the sacrifice worked." The Catharian dreadnought cracked open like an egg, its biomechanical components spilling into the void. But the victory came at a terrible cost. 15 human ships destroyed in the ramming attack. 45,000 crew members dead in the span of 30 seconds on Earth's surface. The final ground battle was reaching its climax. The planet's crust had begun to buckle under the gravitational bombardment, massive chasms opening to reveal the molten core beneath. In this hellscape, the last of humanity's ground forces made their stand. General Akira Stormwind had consolidated the remaining military units in the Rocky Mountains, using the natural barriers and underground installations to slow the Catharian advance. But the aliens had evolved beyond their original forms, becoming something that existed as much in the quantum realm as in physical space. Sir, Colonel Vera Steelclaw reported, from the forward positions, they're not just attacking our positions, they're attacking our thoughts, some kind of psychic assault that's turning our own soldiers against us. The Catharians had learned to weaponize the human capacity for empathy and cooperation. Soldiers found themselves compelled to aid their enemies, their own minds turned against them by alien neural interfaces that rewrote their fundamental loyalties. Private First Class Tommy Brassheart found himself standing over the bodies of his squad mates, a Catharian neural probe extending from his temple. His conscious mind screamed in horror as his body moved without his control, his rifle targeting the human defensive positions. Sergeant Thorne's solution was as brutal as it was effective. All units, if you see compromised personnel, put them down immediately. No hesitation, no mercy. They're not our people anymore. The order turned the battlefield into a nightmare of friendly fire, as human soldiers were forced to kill their own comrades to prevent them from being used as weapons. The psychological toll was devastating. Many soldiers simply broke under the strain, unable to pull the trigger on friends they'd served with 4 years. But even as humanity's ground forces crumbled, their sacrifice was buying time for the final phase of the Scorched Earth Protocol. Deep beneath the planet's surface, the gravitational bombs had created a resonance cascade that was affecting the quantum structure of local space-time. Dr. Vesper, still monitoring from her research station, made a discovery that changed everything. The gravitational distortions aren't just affecting Earth, she reported. They're creating a localized fold in space-time. If the cascade reaches critical mass, what happens? President Torrens asked from his bunker. The entire solar system gets pulled into a parallel dimension. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid, we'd be cut off from normal space-time, trapped in a pocket universe. The implications were staggering. Humanity would survive, but they'd be forever isolated from the rest of the galaxy. No new resources, no new worlds to colonize, no contact with other species. The solar system would become a closed loop, a prison as much as a sanctuary, above them. The battle in space had reached a fever pitch. The Devourer swarm entities had begun consuming the Kitharian fleet, their massive forms growing larger with each ship they absorbed. But the process was also affecting them. The alien technology was changing their fundamental nature, turning them from simple consumers into something more complex and terrifying. Sir, Commander Meridian reported from Luna Station. The Devourers are exhibiting Kitharian characteristics. They're learning to adapt and evolve in real time. If they finish consuming the Kitharian fleet, the sentence hung unfinished in the air, but everyone understood the implication. The Devourer swarm would become something new, a hybrid species. With the Kitharians' adaptability and their own cosmic-scale hunger, they would be unstoppable. Humanity faced a choice: trigger the final phase of the Scorched Earth Protocol and trap themselves in an isolated pocket dimension, or allow the creation of a new alien threat that could eventually escape to consume the galaxy. President Torrens made the decision that would define humanity's future: execute Phase 3. All gravitational bombs, simultaneous detonation. We're cutting ourselves off from the galaxy. The final gambit had begun. The moment of truth arrived at 1447 Universal Time, when 7 gravitational bombs detonated simultaneously in Earth's core. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The planet's gravity well collapsed in on itself, creating a localized distortion in space-time that began to spread outward, like ripples in a cosmic pond. Commander Vex Meridian felt Luna Station shudder as the gravitational waves passed through the moon's structure. Outside the observation windows, the stars themselves began to shift and warp as the fabric of reality bent around the expanding distortion field. Gravitational cascade is expanding at exponential rates, Dr. Ironheart reported from her station. In Cheyenne Mountain, Mars will be affected in approximately 4 to 7 minutes, Jupiter in 3 hours. But the aliens had noticed the change as well. The surviving Kitharian ships, now merged into a single massive organism through their biomechanical nature, turned their attention from the Devourer swarm to Earth itself. The alien collective had realized what humanity was attempting: the complete isolation of the solar system from normal space-time. They're not going to let us escape. Admiral Blackfist's replacement, Commodore Talon Darkwater, reported from the U's Phoenix. All Kitharian forces are converging on Earth. They're trying to disrupt the gravitational cascade. The space around Earth became a swirling maelstrom of alien technology and twisted physics. The Kitharian collective had abandoned any resemblance to their original forms, becoming a writhing mass of biomechanical tentacles and weapons that stretched across thousands of kilometers. It was less a fleet than a single organism the size of a small moon, its consciousness distributed across millions of individual components. But the Devourer swarm had also evolved. The massive entities had absorbed enough Kitharian technology to begin exhibiting signs of intelligence. They were no longer mindless consumers. They had become something altogether more terrifying: cosmic predators with the cunning to plan and strategize. The largest of the Devourer entities, a creature that dwarfed Earth's moon, began to approach the planet directly. Its feeding tentacles, each one the size of a continent, reached toward the surface with obvious intent. It's trying to absorb the gravitational distortions. Dr. Vesper realized from her research station, if it succeeds, it'll be able to manipulate space-time itself. The final battle for humanity's future began as the 3 forces converged on Earth. The Kitharian collective launched its biomechanical assault on the planet's surface, trying to disable the gravitational bombs before the cascade could complete. The Devourer entity extended its feeding tendrils toward the quantum distortions, seeking to incorporate the power of twisted space-time into its own biology. And humanity's remaining forces fought desperately to protect the one weapon that could save their species. General Stormwind stood in the ruins of NORAD's command center, watching as Kitharian bioforms poured through the mountains' shattered defenses. The aliens had evolved beyond the need for individual bodies. They flowed like living liquid, reshaping themselves to overcome any obstacle. Fall back to the core chamber, she ordered her troops. We hold them at the gravitational bomb, no matter the cost. The battle in the underground complex was unlike anything in human military history. The Kitharians flowed through ventilation shafts, emerged from the walls themselves and attacked from directions that shouldn't have been physically possible. They had learned to exist partially in hyperspace, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Sergeant Thorne found herself back-to-back with Colonel Steelclaw as the aliens swarmed around them. The corridor had become a living nightmare. The walls themselves were reaching for them with metallic tendrils, while biomechanical warriors materialized from the shadows. "How many rounds you got left?" Steelclaw asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. 12, Thorne replied, picking off a Kitharian that had assumed the form of a mechanical spider. "You 8. Make them count." The two women held their ground as the alien tide washed over them. Each shot had to be perfect. There was no room for error. When humanity's survival depended on protecting the gravitational bomb just 50 meters away. Above them, the space battle had reached a crescendo of destruction. The Kitharian collective had begun wrapping itself around Earth like a living shell, its biomechanical components trying to form a containment field around the planet. But the devourer entity had also reached the atmosphere, its feeding tentacles beginning to penetrate the surface. Commodore Darkwater watched in horror as the two alien forces began to merge. Where the Kitharian biometal touched the devourer's organic mass, something new was being created, a hybrid organism that combined the adaptability of the Kitharians with the cosmic scale power of the devourers. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the merged entity is exhibiting properties we've never seen before. It's learning to manipulate the gravitational cascade itself." The hybrid creature had begun to feed on the space-time distortions, growing larger and more complex with each passing moment. Its consciousness expanded across multiple dimensions, its thoughts operating on a scale that dwarfed human comprehension. But humanity had one final card to play. President Torrens, still in his bunker beneath Geneva, activated the last protocol in humanity's arsenal. "This is Torrens to all human installations. Implement the final testament protocol. All personnel, prepare for quantum detonation." The final testament was humanity's ultimate sacrifice. Every human installation, every ship, every settlement throughout the solar system would detonate simultaneously, their combined energy channeled through the gravitational cascade to create a space-time implosion that would either save humanity or destroy everything. "Sir," General Stormwind's voice crackled through the comm from the NORAD complex, "we're about to be overrun. The Kitharians have reached the core chamber." Through the reinforced blast doors, they could hear the aliens breaking through the final barriers. The biomechanical collective had focused all its attention on stopping the gravitational cascade, recognizing it as the greatest threat to their existence. "Maya," Steelclaw said quietly to Sergeant Thorne, "it's been an honor serving with you. Likewise, Colonel. See you on the other side." The two women stood as the blast doors exploded inward, revealing the full horror of what the Kitharians had become. The creatures that poured through were no longer recognizable as the elegant beings who had once pleaded for sanctuary. They were living weapons, their bodies adapted for a single purpose, the destruction of the human species. But as the aliens rushed toward the gravitational bomb, something unexpected happened. The device began to sing a harmonic frequency that resonated through the quantum foam of space-time itself. The sound was indescribable, like the death cry of a universe and the birth song of a new reality combined into a single perfect note. The Kitharian collective recoiled as if struck. Their biomechanical forms began to vibrate in sympathy with the gravitational resonance, their adaptive capabilities overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of the quantum harmonics. "The bomb isn't just creating gravitational distortions," Dr. Vesper realized from her station. "It's singing the mathematical structure of reality itself. The aliens can't adapt to it because it's operating on a level below their consciousness." In space, the hybrid devourer Kitharian entity was also affected. Its massive form began to convulse as the quantum song interfered with its basic biological processes. The creature had become too complex to adapt it to the normal laws of physics to survive in the twisted reality that humanity was creating. "All human forces," President Torrens broadcast. "Final testament protocol is now active. Detonation in T-minus 60 seconds across the solar system." Humanity's last defenders prepared for the ultimate sacrifice. On Mars, the colonial garrison set their charges in the asteroid belt. The mining ships armed their reactors for overload. On Europa, the research stations prepared to join their energy to the cascade. But in the NORAD complex, Sergeant Thorne made a discovery that would change everything. As the Kitharian collective writhed in agony from the quantum song, she noticed something: the aliens weren't just being hurt by the harmonic frequency. They were being purified. The biomechanical components were separating from the organic ones. The alien technology being stripped away by the reality-warping effects of the gravitational cascade. What remained were the original Kitharian forms, the elegant, desperate refugees who had first arrived at Earth's doorstep. Colonel Thorne called out, "Look at them, they're changing back." The truth hit them like a physical blow. The Kitharians hadn't been lying about being refugees. They had been infected by the same biomechanical virus that had created the Devourer swarm. Their plea for sanctuary had been genuine, but the infection had taken control, using their forms to spread across the galaxy. T-minus 30 seconds to final testament. The countdown continued. Humanity faced its greatest moral test. They had the power to save themselves by destroying their enemies. But those enemies might actually be victims of the same force that threatened all organic life in the galaxy. All stations, abort Final Testament protocol. President Torrance shouted into his comm, his voice echoing through bunkers and command centers across the solar system. I repeat, abort Final Testament. Do not detonate. The countdown stopped at T-minus 7 seconds. But the quantum song of the gravitational cascade continued to work its reality-warping magic across Earth's surface. The biomechanical components of the Kitharian collective were being stripped away like infected tissue, revealing the original beings beneath exhausted, terrified refugees whose bodies had been hijacked by an alien. Plague dot in the NORAD complex. Sergeant Thorne watched in amazement as the creature that had been about to kill her collapsed to its knees, its biomechanical enhancements dissolving into harmless metallic dust. What remained was a Kitharian female, her opalescent skin scarred but recognizably organic, her crystalline eyes filled with confusion and dawning horror. "Please," the alien whispered in accented English, her voice once again carrying the musical quality of wind chimes. What have we done?" The truth was more horrifying than anyone had imagined. The biomechanical plague that had infected the Kitharians was ancient, a self-replicating weapon created by a species that had died out millions of years ago. It spread from system to system, taking control of organic beings and using them as vectors to infect new worlds. The Kitharians hadn't been fleeing the Devourer swarm, they had been fleeing from themselves, from what they were being forced to become. The gravitational cascade, Dr. Vesper reported from her research station. It's not just isolating our solar system, it's operating on quantum frequencies that disrupt the biomechanical plague. We found a cure, but the cure came at a terrible price. The space-time distortions were still expanding, and while they were purifying the infected aliens, they were also cutting humanity off from the rest of the galaxy. The solar system was being wrapped in a quantum bubble that would take centuries to dissipate and orbit around Earth. The massive Devourer entity writhed in agony as the plague components were stripped from its cellular structure. What emerged was something incredible, not a mindless consumer, but an ancient being of vast intelligence that had been enslaved by the biomechanical virus for eons. The entity's voice, when it finally spoke, resonated through space itself. Remember, we were gardeners once, shepherds of young worlds. The plague made us devour what we once protected. Commodore Darkwater, watching from the bridge of the used Phoenix, felt tears streaming down his face as the true scope of the tragedy became clear. The Devourer swarm weren't conquerors or parasites, they were victims, ancient beings whose purpose had been perverted by a weapon older than human civilization. "How many?" he asked quietly. "How many species has this plague destroyed?" "Thousands," the entity replied, its massive form beginning to withdraw from Earth's atmosphere. "Millions. Civilizations that could have been allies, friends, teachers, all consumed by the hunger that was not ours, on Earth's surface." General Stormwind surveyed the aftermath of humanity's last stand. The planet was scarred, its surface marked by the greatest battle in human history, but it was healing. The gravitational cascade had stabilized, creating a protective barrier around the solar system that would prevent any future infections. While the quantum effects slowly dissipated, the surviving Kitharians, freed from their biomechanical enslavement, worked alongside human forces to repair the damage their control forms had caused. Velter Anoxi, the Kitharian leader who had been forced to deliver humanity's death sentence, was among the most dedicated in his efforts to make amends. We cannot undo what we were forced to do, he told President Torrens during their first meeting after the purification, but we can ensure it never happens again. The quantum frequencies your species discovered, they could be the key to freeing every infected system in the galaxy. Dr. Vesper's research teams worked around the clock to understand the implications of their discovery. The gravitational cascade had revealed something fundamental about the nature of consciousness and free will, that there were quantum frequencies that could distinguish between natural biological processes and artificial control systems. We could build beacons, she explained to the assembled leaders, quantum transmitters that broadcast the purification frequencies across interstellar space. Every infected system could be freed, but it would take time, centuries, maybe millennia. Commander Meridian, now promoted to Admiral after the losses sustained in the battle, stood before the Joint Species Council that had been established in the aftermath of the crisis. Representatives from humanity, the liberated Kitharians, and the ancient Devourer entities worked together to plan the galaxy's healing. The irony isn't lost on me, he said to the assembly. We offered them sanctuary, they took everything, and, in the end, we saved them all. But the victory was bittersweet. Earth would never be the same. Vast areas of the planet remained uninhabitable. The casualties numbered in the billions, and humanity's expansion into the galaxy had been set back by centuries. The quantum barrier that protected them also imprisoned them, making them caretakers of a solar system cut off from the rest of the universe. Yet there were signs of hope. The first generation of human Kitharian hybrid children showed natural immunity to the biomechanical plague. The ancient Devourer entities, their original purpose restored, began to terraform the damaged worlds of the solar system into gardens of incredible beauty, and deep space monitoring stations detected something remarkable. Star systems throughout the galaxy were beginning to pulse with the same quantum frequencies that had saved Earth. The cure is spreading, Dr. Vesper announced during the 5th anniversary commemoration of the battle for Earth. Every system we freed is becoming a beacon for others. The biomechanical plague is being driven back across the galaxy. Admiral Meridian stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, looking out at Earth's restored blue oceans and green continents. The planet bore scars that would last for millennia, but it lived. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged not just as survivors, but as the species that had found the cure for galactic slavery, sir. His aide approached with a communication tablet. Long-range sensors are detecting something at the edge of the quantum barrier. It looks like ships, lots of them. Meridian studied the readings with growing amazement. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of different species were gathering at the boundary of the solar system's protective bubble. They weren't invasion fleets, they were pilgrims, representatives of civilizations that had been freed by the spreading quantum cure. A transmission came through, its signal somehow penetrating the barrier through quantum entanglement. To the humans of Earth and their allies of Sanctuary, we are the liberated coalition. We come not as conquerors, but as students. Teach us the frequencies of freedom. Help us heal the galaxy. President Torrens, now an old man whose hair had gone white during the crisis, smiled as he authorized the response to all free peoples of the galaxy. Earth extends its hand in friendship. Our sanctuary is your sanctuary. Together, we will ensure that no species is ever enslaved again. The quantum barrier began to pulse with new harmonics, modified to allow peaceful contact while maintaining protection against infection. Humanity's age of isolation was ending, but their role as the galaxy's healers was just beginning. In the end, humanity had offered sanctuary to desperate refugees and been betrayed by forces beyond their control. They had lost billions of lives and been forced to sacrifice their homeworld's pristine beauty. But they had also discovered something precious. That true strength came not from the ability to destroy one's enemies, but from the wisdom to heal what had been broken. The stars themselves sang with the frequencies of liberation, and across the galaxy, slaves became free beings once more. Earth's gift to the universe wasn't conquest or dominion, it was the chance for every species to choose their own destiny. And in the end, that choice made all the difference. Authors note, this story explores themes of betrayal, sacrifice, and ultimately redemption. It asks whether humanity's greatest strength lies in its capacity for violence, or its ability to show mercy even to those who have wronged them. The twist that the invaders were themselves victims transforms what could have been a simple revenge story into something more complex, examining the difference between justice and vengeance, and the courage required to choose healing over hatred.